Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Keilani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Keilani, and I'm here with James.
I'm James. We're recording in the evening.
I know.
So I have a little extra energy because I've been awake for the whole day.
Oh, man. And I'm reaching the time of day when my voice is going to go because I've been sick again.
Yeah. We had to postpone our last recording because Keilani's been battling this awful stuff.
It's really just attacked my voice. And so that's the thing. Like, how do you do therapy in a podcast without your voice?
Yeah. And
do I mime it?
I'll just do all the talking.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Okay. That's when we call it fully dysfunctional.
Yeah. The listeners are like, oh, Keilani, please, your voice needs to pull through.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's good enough. It's good enough right now. So we made it. And today I want to just talk about how do you find the right therapist that can really help you heal? How do you know what type of healing you need? I think that it can be really daunting for people who've never found a therapist.
Yeah.
Or who've had a therapist who wasn't the right fit for them.
Yeah.
And it was a negative experience. And there are some therapists, there's good and bad mechanics, there's good and bad therapists. And unfortunately, when you get bad therapist, it can cause more trauma.
Yeah.
Versus if it's a bad mechanic, you're frustrated and maybe pay a little too much money. This can cause actually more harm.
Totally.
And so it's a really important thing to vet your therapist. So the first thing you need to figure out is, why are you going to therapy? Is it because you are wanting to improve a relationship in your life? Is it because of a specific past trauma? Is it because you've realized that you are depressed? Have you been having auditory or visual hallucinations? These are all going to determine what type of therapist and what type of therapy you might be seeking.
For sure. Yeah, I remember I went through a life crisis a couple years ago where we were looking for a therapist, and I remember so many different people were giving me so much different advice, and and some of that advice was pretty was fairly destructive. So I think it's what you said about choosing the right therapist is absolutely
or unqualified
critical.
People giving you advice can be problematic.
Totally. But even some therapists, and I mean, I don't know. I guess I have my ideas of what I personally would look for in a therapist. And her name would have to rhyme with Keilani Schmason. So
thanks, guys.
That's my one requirement. So if you need a therapist like that, subscribe to our YouTube channel where you'll basically get it for free.
Woo!
Just kidding.
Well, no, I mean, this is my part of my passion in this is providing free information, free content.
Yeah.
Why are you sniffing your drink?
It's actually a tick.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's what I've never noticed before.
I push it to the bottom of my nose like that.
Oh.
And I smell it while it's there.
That's the first one I've noticed like that.
Yeah.
It's like a treasure hunt. I just found it.
That's right.
Okay, so, you have to figure out what you want. What are the goals that you want to address? So if you're looking for someone who works with relationships, breaking away from narcissistic people in your life, healing from emotional trauma, and trying to build the life that you want, I might be the therapist for you. Yeah. I also really love career counseling too, and figuring out the thing that you really want to do. If you really want to work with psychedelics, I might be the therapist for you. So we have to think about the right therapist. And any therapist who kind of claims that they see and work with everyone, I would kind of be curious about that. Maybe they haven't been in the field long enough, because a good therapist really has a passion for their work and has narrowed down their niche that they want to work with.
Yeah.
So Thinking about that is another thing as you look for a therapist. So do some research. You could start with talking to people that you know and seeing like who they might recommend. There's also a site called Psychology Today. It's also a magazine, but it's a directory that most of the therapists in your area probably use.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's okay. Yeah. Okay. So one thing that I learned in my mental health journey was just the different types of modalities that I feel like resonated with me better. Mm-hmm. Like I tried or what was it called?
EMDR.
Yeah, EMDR.
Yep.
But I didn't really like that one. I mean, it was okay, but then and I tried DBT and CBT, and as you might know, I thought DBT was my personal favorite. Just the whole concept of radical acceptance and like learning how to almost exist in reality, even when reality is ugly, you know? Mm-hmm. But CBT is really similar, right?
Yeah, so CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's actually like half of what DBT is.
Okay.
So DBT is a combination of CBT and mindfulness, and I'd probably say some acceptance and commitment therapy as well. Okay. So it's a nice little mix of all those things. And it's really nice because it helps you build skills in emotional regulation and distress tolerance, in interpersonal skills and in mindfulness. So I think for someone who's, like you said, kind of needing to accept their reality and maybe even work with other people more effectively, that would be a really great tool to have. It's really recommended with teens. It's recommended with people who it's good for everyone. So I hate to say even like distinguish it, but with people who are like borderline personality or bipolar, it can be a good skill to help ground them. But I think it's a tool. Those are tools that are good for anyone, really. So I'd really recommend a good DBT therapist. Cognitive behavioral therapy works really well too, and I sprinkle that into the work that I do. But it isn't something that necessarily like, it's a tool in the toolbox. It isn't by far not my strongest tool in my toolbox.
For sure.
Of things that I like to do with clients.
Yeah.
Right now, my favorite therapy that I like using is internal family systems, IFS. And I always like some mindfulness, and I always like using some Gottman therapy, which can be used not just with couples, but sometimes there's ways to incorporate it into other work too. So there's a lot of different types of therapy, and that's a good thing to think about as well. Like once you know what it is that you want to go to therapy for, you can do a little bit of research into what are the top therapies that are great for someone who has addiction issues, someone who has trouble with narcissistic relationships and codependency, or someone who is really struggling with their anxiety. So that's one way, again, to start narrowing it down. Because when you go onto Psychology Today, it's honestly like you're online dating for a therapist. It's like, I want to work with a female therapist who speaks this language.
As a professional cuddler.
Well, you want to make sure that you don't work with someone who is inappropriate.
Okay.
So that's not recommended.
Okay.
Cuddle therapy is a thing. I've heard of it, but it's not this type of therapy.
So, okay, when you mentioned IFS, which you have definitely mentioned IFS in the past, but when you mentioned it just now, you kind of lit up. So tell us why IFS is like your personal fave right now.
Yeah, well, when we did the episodes with the cards and we were talking about different parts, that's IFS. It's like talking about, and it's a form of it. It's parts work. And I find that when I've brought that up with clients, even as young as like my middle school clients, I have a few of those still, they were really able to open up and talk more profoundly about what was going on for them and kind of explain it with more depth and more emotional processing. And that's where the good stuff is, over on the deep end.
Yeah.
And so I've really liked how it can open my clients up.
Right. Would you say that that it almost like allows, because I noticed that with the cards, there was a lot of inner child, like greeting our inner child. And then I noticed that with just from like friends and people who have done psychedelic therapy, they like greet their inner child a lot of times. So would you say that the inner child is a huge component with IFS, or just therapy in general?
No, I think it is a huge component of IFS work, and it just also melds really well with psychedelic work. It's a very compatible type
Okay.
of therapy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different types of parts work. I should almost just call it parts work because
Okay.
I'm not IFS specifically trained.
Okay.
I've gone to trainings, but I'm not fully trained.
Yeah.
And so what I do is kind of a dabbling of IFS and other parts work, which is all very similar, and just this understanding of, I have these different parts, then protective parts that come in when I'm trying to shield myself from being hurt again. And how can I pay attention to that in a different way, in a more collaborative way? And it is a really wonderful tool. It's what I'm into, and I'm into working with psychedelics, whether that's microdosing or there's certain other medicines that have been really great for healing, especially MDMA. So there's been a ton of research, really exciting stuff with working with people who have complex trauma and severe PTSD.
Yeah.
And how that can really treat that emotional response, that fight, flight, freeze response, that hypervigilance, or there can just be a sense of really negative feelings about oneself that tie into trauma. And ultimately, that's what I've been on a pursuit of healing. At first, it started wanting to work in the elementary school, and if I can help prevent the trauma, and there's just too much to do there that can't be done. And I loved what I could do, the impact I could have, but I realized it had to be more. It had to be working with the parents.
Yeah.
And my goal now is how do we mitigate generational trauma from spreading I want to be a resource to people who want to create a better world for their children.
Yeah.
And even if they don't have children, a better world, period. And that really starts when we say, if you want to go heal the world, go home and love your family. It really is it starts with you. It starts with you as a person and what you can do.
Yeah.
And therapy is one way. There are other ways that people heal, and mental health therapy is one way. It's the way that I have chosen to spread that healing in the world, hopefully.
Well, it's crazy because that one phrase, go home and love your family. The thing that I've learned in my experience is that basically the question, how do you love your family, or what's the best way to love? And I learned that the best way to love outwardly is to love inwardly. Mm-hmm. So I was listening to this guy. His name's Dr. Dan Allender. He's a mental health expert, but he has the Allender Center over near Seattle. And so and he's faith-based. So, but one thing that he said that on his podcast the other day that really sparked a new thought for me was that he used this analogy where a friend of his had broken his arm when he was young, and his family didn't have the resources to take him to a doctor so it healed properly. So he just learned how to adapt, so it didn't heal properly. So then when he's an adult, he realized. He went to a doctor for it, and the doctor basically said, we have to re-break this arm so that it heals properly. And then I realized that I healed my whole life. I healed improperly. I learned how to adapt to the point where it came to a head, which forced me.
Yeah, it wasn't working anymore.
Right, and it forced a re-breaking of my life.
Yeah.
And then the rebuild after that and the healing. Now I'm healing consistent to the way that I'm supposed to heal.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful comparison. Yeah.
And so that
I'm going to steal that one. That's a good one.
Well, it blew my mind when I listened to it. And so that really was helpful because it almost answered a question for me, And so it kind of made everything come full circle in that one moment. And, but yeah, it's mental health. All the mental health experts and the pioneers of mental health, in my opinion, have nailed it, have gotten it right because they earnestly journeyed through trying to figure out the human problem, the human condition. And so and it's we're guys, mental health people from 100 years ago have made observations that we read today that we
Even farther back. And what's interesting is when you get to learn about other cultures and what they were doing, thousands of years ago. And so in some ways, Western psychologists and psychiatrists, they needed to have it be so, documented and proven in a certain way, in a theory and everything. But so much of it can still, if we're using simple terms, it still can look is the same, really. And, we can give it different names. It can look different, but a lot of it is the same.
Yeah. Same discoveries. Yeah.
And I think this process of coming to therapy, if it feels scary, because I think for a lot of people, they're really terrified about what they might find.
Yeah.
If they've been living with this life of, like you said, hobbled together broken bits.
Right.
They are also living oftentimes in an illusion that they're not broken. They're trying so hard to not be broken, to adapt.
Right.
And then to believe that all of that effort was for naught and that they truly are broken feels devastating. And I think that it should also feel exciting because you have persevered so hard.
Yeah.
There's such strength within you. And there are tools and there are people and there are healing relationships that can help you ease that stress and strain and put that weight down. So this should be an exciting homecoming.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's listening who's feared going to therapy, I guess that's the message that I want you to be thinking about after this episode, that this can also be such an invitation to get to know yourself and to love other people better. And how amazing is that to do in your lifetime?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I wonder, though, if using that same analogy of the broken arm, I wonder if people kind of subconsciously are afraid to have to re-break.
Yeah.
And so because that vulnerability and letting down the walls when you've kind of held yourself together this whole time, but through through suppression and avoiding and running from everything, because that was me. And
it's so automatic and it's so just you don't even realize that you're doing it. I mean, that's all you've ever known.
Right. And so, but man, that just the creating vulnerability and really navigating through all the places that you've avoided strengthens everything. And you become this really peace-filled, almost complete version of yourself.
And it's going to be a constant evolution.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And that's the excite. I've reached this point now where I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
When I discover there's a new area for me to give more compassion to and for me to have deeper insight, it's exciting for me because I realize, it's going to feel so good on the other end of that when I can just operate more naturally from that place of love.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now today I feel like I can honestly say I love me and I trust me and I believe in me, where because we we've been through the fire and so the world is less scary. I'm no longer.
You have self-efficacy, and that means that I have my hands on the steering wheel of life, and I trust myself to navigate it. I have the tools to do so. And when we are living with all these broken bits that haven't been fully healed properly, and it's just been swept under the rug, this is where a lot of anxiety and depression comes to fester because we don't have the proper tools to navigate life with ease.
Exactly.
Life feels scary and out of control in that state. So being able to add mental health therapy in the mix is a beautiful tool.
Right.
And as I lose my voice.
It sounded like you were crying, but she's not crying. She's about to cough.
I know. I'm trying. I'm trying to persevere now.
Yeah, you're doing amazing.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, you're dropping bombs today too. So.
Oh man, it's all this cold medicine. It's gone to my head. Woo. Okay, the last tip, or one of the last tips, we'll say, because I tend to go on tangents, is
that's good.
Again, just like dating, you need to dabble a little bit. Don't just go with the first therapist that you meet with. In fact, most therapists provide a free 15-minute phone consultation to determine if you're a good fit. So schedule several of them. Find several therapists that work within the modalities that you want to try or already work for you. that specialize in the thing that you are really wanting to focus on and work on. And then have a phone consultation. And are you vibing with them?
Yeah.
Like if you were doing like speed dating, you'd be like picking up on what's the chemistry here. And just like finding a therapist, that's really what you're looking for, is like, do I have chemistry with this person? Now, ethics, there's not going to be any kind of romantic chemistry.
Yeah, don't sleep with them in the first session.
That shouldn't happen. I hope that happens. You should report that. But you need to trust your gut and kind of go with the person that you think you'll be able to trust, to communicate well with. Do they have a compassionate and empathetic and non-judgmental communication style that works for you? Or do you like someone who's more analytical and more to the point?
Yeah.
That might be the direction that fits best. So just assess those things and then give it a little time, and don't be afraid to break up with your therapist and find someone new if you need to.
Yeah.
I mean, now as a seasoned therapist, if someone told me I'm really looking for someone who deals with this and this, I'd be like, I wish you the best. Let me give you some referrals. Like, I just want what's best for the people that I work with.
Yeah. See, I would have been like, oh, excuse you, do you know who I am? That's how I would have responded. Yeah, good luck finding someone like me.
Well, and also when I feel like I'm not able to get them to the next step of where they're going because it's not in my wheelhouse, I try to refer them on to someone because I know my scope of practice. I understand like the areas I'm passionate about and that I've received further training in, and that's the direction that I'm going in. So if someone is really needing help with like they're on the spectrum and they're trying to navigate that, that's probably not going to be my wheelhouse that I have an extensive like knowledge base on.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's important to really trust your gut and to feel out who the right therapist is. And then I wanted to explain some of the like letters that can be confusing, because there's a psychiatrist, and that's someone who prescribes medication and they have their medical doctorate degree. Mm-hmm. There's a psychologist, and I believe that's like a doctorate of philosophy on psychology, but it's not a medical degree. Okay. So they could probably do research. They could also teach at a university, as well as do therapy. But they are a psychologist and they do have a doctorate. Then there's licensed counselors. That's what I am. LMHC, licensed mental health counselor. So my degree was in counseling psychology. And I don't think there's that many undergrad programs. I also had an undergrad program that was in counseling. So that was great. I got to have like 6 full years of like learning how to do what I do. And I loved it. Then there's licensed social workers, and they can work as licensed independent social workers, and they can work as therapists. And then there's marriage and family counselors. Okay. So, and in other states it can vary, but those are kind of the basic categories. If you're looking for, let's say, marital therapy, you might want someone who specializes then in marriage and family therapy. Yeah. But that gives you some tools to figure out and navigate what it is that you're needing.
Yeah. What about life coach? Is that in that spectrum? Okay.
All right. I'm ready now. So life coaches that was a great question. Life coaches don't have any kind of regulating body like health departments that regulate all of these other letters I just described. Life coaching is a little bit like the Wild West. Okay. Excuse me. But there are still really great life coaches. And again, I think there's good and bad of any industry that you're in. Yeah. So there's life coaches, and there are training programs, and you'll want to research and vet them. Also, therapists can become life coaches too. So I do life coaching work as well. Okay. And typically, I think you might see life coaches being viewed more so as like they're working on your future rather than your past. And sometimes I have issue with that because I feel like your past is often hanging you up to meet your future. Totally. So I think it's interconnected, but certainly like a life coach by maybe a more traditional definition is someone who's like, let's get your habits in line so that you can excel moving forward. But I kind of have a holistic approach to my life coaching. That's something I think is important, but if there's hangups to your past, let's tackle those too while we're at it.
Yeah. So let's say that you are looking for a therapist for yourself. Yeah. What are some good criteria?
It's another good one. would do a lot of research, and that would start either by Psychology Today or looking at their website. And do I feel like it's speaking to me? Is it speaking to the issues that I'm wanting to work on? Sometimes, actually, the counselor that I work with and I like, she had a podcast. And that's how I found her.
Nice.
And so are there ways where you get to know that person, know their personality and their communication style maybe before you work with them?
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful way to step a toe in. But then the other thing I would do is to schedule those phone consultations with a few people and treat that like you're interviewing them and like you're getting a sense for them. And maybe you could ask, what are your modalities? Do you have a lot of experience working with this issue?
Yeah, working with weirdos. Just
working with weirdos like James. Look at you, messing stuff up.
Okay, another question.
Broke the mic. Okay.
Another question.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, I think our fans want to know.
Oh.
Our listeners. I shouldn't flatter myself. Say your fans. So since the podcast and our YouTube has gotten a lot of traction, have there been people like from around the world that have reached out to you to do like telehealth therapy?
There's been some people who've reached out to me. And,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And so I have a wait list and I have some new offerings coming up that I'm really, really excited about. So if anyone listening wants to be updated on that, you can find me on Instagram at Keilani_evolve. You can find me on my website at coachkeilani.com. And the website will be updated soon and I'll have some more information there. But I'm really excited to be shifting to offering some more things from a life coaching perspective that are more worldwide.
That's amazing. Well, and I know that the listeners also have another burning question. Have people reached out to me asking for help?
Have people reached out to you for help for their mental health?
Honestly,
and,
surprisingly, no. No one has. People have reached out to help me.
Do you need help, James?
Yeah, James, you could use some therapy.
Well, I'm glad you're still hanging out.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up, man.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Well, that wraps this up before my voice gives out. I'm sorry for coughing and hacking in your ear, but you also get this lovely rasp when I'm not coughing. It's kind of cute.
Everyone comment and tell Keilani how awesome she did. And even though she's sick,
I did it.
That was I mean, there were some dimes in that episode. So,
oh, thanks.
Yeah. Good stuff for content.
Woo. Cold medicine.
Yeah. And it's also evening, so we're both mentally wide awake. Normally we film in the mornings, and for me personally, I had CrossFitted probably like an hour prior, so I'm just like so drained, and I feel fantastic right now.
Okay. Yeah. Do we need to switch things up?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I just need to be better at preparing in the mornings. Anyway, okay, well, take it away. Say goodbye to the people.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and share. Check out our YouTube where we are exploring music videos that really tie in deep emotional issues, and I break it down for you. So it's a fun space to get some more Keilani and sometimes James. Sometimes he pops in too.
Yeah, you never know.
Thank you so much, delightful humans. I appreciate you so much, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.